Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. I should just mention a couple of people have posted that the sound is a bit unusual over the last few videos, and um, I'm just away from my normal sound setup, which isn't super high quality anyway. So I'm having to make do with something a little bit less than optimal, and that's the reason for the change in the sound quality. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the globalist project and what the globalists are going to do about what is an inevitable crushing that they're going to get in the congressional midterms. Now, the globalists have got a very bad track record in accepting the people's verdict. It was only a couple of years ago they did their polling, they did their numbers, and they thought, holy crap, we're going to lose. And we've got to do something about that. What can we do? Well, if you can't control the candidates that are standing for election, then you've got other options, controlling the outcome of the election, such as the counting process and things like that, and the gathering and harvesting and delivery of votes, changing chain of custody laws and things like that. So you control the candidates, you control the collation and counting process, or you effectively suspend the election. You declare a form of martial law and say, well, we can't have an election because, let's say, we're surrounded by white supremacist Nazis. Nazis are everywhere. White supremacists, they're in the closet, they're under the bed, they're around the corner. You can't see them, but they're always around the next corner. And maybe they'll do a few false flags, a few flunkies in around the tenderloins in poor street. Maybe will have to be sacrificed to the cause here so they can be a nice screaming headline. But the globalists won't accept that they're going, the will of the people, the verdict of the people is not something the globalists have the slightest respect for. Globalization is all about bypassing the will of the people. In fact, that's its essence. So if they're going to face the voters and the voters put an end to the globalist project, which they will if they're allowed to vote, the globalists can't accept that. They have way too much invested in the globalist, way too much invested in the globalist project. And they're certainly not going to allow some fucking peasants and the vote and the constitution to get in the way of this globalist project. They will not allow it. They simply will not allow it. Now, the only reason that 2016 happened is the globalists didn't think they could lose. And boy did they get a shock. But they remedied that in 2020. And if we look at Dinesh D'Souza's movie 2000 Mules, if you haven't seen it, I suggest that you find it and have a look at it. There are some online versions, but have a look at that, and it will just show you the extent and the money and the organisation and the planning that went into that, and how far ahead of the polling day that was organised. So they've got certainly form, and they've got previous for having a look at an election and saying, we're not going to win this. If we don't win it, it's going to slow down or stop the globalist project. We will not allow the globalist project to be slowed down or stopped, and we will do whatever it takes to ensure the continuity of the globalist project. Now that's where we're at now. So the congressional midterms, I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that if processes take their normal, natural, organic course, the Democrats will lose heavily all over the place. Their attempt to stack courts and everything will be compromised, and then come 2024, they're almost guaranteed to lose the White House, and then the Republicans could be looking or easily looking at 8 years. I think 8 to 10 years, given the realities of the situation, 8 to 10 years in the White House, and possibly the Democrats may not achieve majority in either of the Senate or the House of Representatives also for 8 to 10 years. It would be pretty much the end of the globalist project. So you're the globalist goon squad. You're the heavies. They're meeting at Davos now, and so what do? They go, okay, well, we can take control of the counting and the collation process of votes. So they can do that. But that's a bit hard after what happened in 2020. Not that it can't be done, but they're going to have to engage in such absurdly high-handed tactics and I think they would do like they've done just in Australia, last week. I think it would be a softly one where the Democrats win the House of Representatives just by one seat or one district, and just one district in the Senate. So just something like that. Well, why it was close, but we still hung on. And you know why we hung on? Because we opposed those damn fucking fascist Hitler Nazis. So they can rig vote or rig. They can make sure the counting achieves the objectives that they want. They've got to make it look sort of kind of a little bit plausible, just so they can sell it as being, the cleanest election ever in the history of the whole universe and all that sort of stuff. But so that's one thing, the controlling the counting and collation. And now bear in mind, they're sitting around the table knowing that they're going to get crushed, knowing that the whole globalist project is fucked, because they can't sell it to the people. It's got to be one of the most fucked things that's ever been, and they can't sell it. No one wants it, and they've got to force it on the people through all sorts of rigging, stacking, and disinformation, misinformation, and so on. It's just their 101. It's just that they've got no other way of doing this. So that's number two is that they can control the candidates. Well, they've lost control of that. Now we can't control all the candidates, but we can turn the candidates that aren't yet on our side, so they can either bribe them or compromise them, or make sure that there's lots of young little waif-like women that magically appear. He tried to rape me. They can do that, and so this will be all over the media, which the globalists control. So you better vote the way we want, so they can get, and don't sell these guys short. They know how to get at these people. So there's that. Now I don't know. That's a bit of a mixed bag. If you look at the resources that the globalists put into doing things, they don't do it in half measures. Holy fuck! So they no doubt would put vast resources, numerous agents, but they'd probably use the FBI and all sorts of things to get that done. So they either have to control the candidates, or if they can't control them, or as in place all the electoral candidates, or they have to control them through bribery, intimidation, and extortion, and threats, and so on, which has worked quite well. Some of these people getting into parliaments and Congress, these are people that would make not even the average wage. They're very low IQ, very unimpressive people. So they're shoehorned in there. They think $170,000 a year is big bucks. I was making that money 30 years ago. So they can't. It's easy to like people like that. You dangle a waterfront property in front of them, and they go down like a sack of shit. So, not all of them are like that, but they're hardly the sort of the stoic patriots that you read about in the history books. To what extent they ever existed, they hardly exist at all now. They're just that the all the parliaments in the Western world are filled with people. Maybe not everybody, but certainly many of them that can't wait to sell out their fellow citizens for a few pieces of silver. So there's that. But that's again a bit of a sort of mixed bag. It's not going to. The globalists want guaranteed outcomes. They don't want to have to think about it or worry about it, or have the globalist project, subject to other forces and influence. The globalists want to control every card, every card in the pack. The entire deck must be fully and totally stacked. That is the only situation they'll accept. Anyone that gets in the way, they must have the power to crush them through, use of the state security apparatus and being crushed and marginalised by the media, or indeed, the big banks and so on. So now the third option is just to completely suspend that entire electoral process. Now, to do that, you need some sort of an emergency. So now the globalists, through their flunkies in the media and the Democrat Party in the United States, they've been very active in cooking up, conspiracies that there's white supremacists and there's Nazis and fascists and Hitler, and anyone that votes for the Republicans is Hitler, and so on. They've been very sort of bolshy in screaming that one from the rooftops. And I would, even a year ago, if someone had said to me that one of the major political parties in the United States would effectively suspend elections on the basis of some completely invented and trumped up, like completely created sort of drama or problem, then like insurrection, Nazis, white supremacists, and I think their keenness to crush the white people and take the guns and so on is because they may be planning something like that. I mean, if they're not planning, it's definitely on their list of possibilities of what can we do if we lose control of the globalist project. I would guarantee it is on their list of things. That this is the possibilities. What can we do if we lose control? And I guarantee that's on their list. And the sort of things that they're doing now, there are people openly calling for the reintroduction of sort of vague treason laws. I mean, there's even some people calling out for any news announcer that doesn't toe the globalist line has to be arrested for treason. Now, the next step, there's only a few small steps from there to suspending the vote. So the vote can't be allowed because of riots, and we have to step in with martial law, and we have to take everyone's guns, and we have to do, so they can bypass sort of the first, second, and multiple sort of constitutional amendments and standards, and do that in the name of rescuing or saving or protecting the people. Those are always the go-to excuses. I don't doubt that's what they're doing. They can't sell the globalist project. If they can't rig elections and control who stands for election, then the only other solution really that they've got, as they would see it, would be to suspend elections altogether based on some spurious bullshit of, again, protecting the people. So I'd say that's on their list of things. Now, they're staring down the barrel of an absolute crushing come the midterms. So they've got to do something, and they know that. And if we look at the effort and the money, the hundreds of millions of dollars, the organisation, the structure, the deceit, the treachery that was used in 2020, that 2,000 mules exposes some of at least, then we can see the extent to which they're prepared to subvert what hitherto would be considered normal processes. So I think that's coming when they realise that they're going to get absolutely crushed, and there's nothing else they can do about it, and there's no way around it. I think that's when they'll lash out big time. And does anyone think for a minute they're going to accept the will of the people? Not a chance. Not a chance. I'll close just quickly with the Australian federal election. Magically, and the election just gone, there was not a single protest vote against the parties that most aggressively shut down the economy for COVID. The parties that most aggressively pursue the climate change fantasies. There was no protest vote against them at all. In fact, the more screaming sort of communist green these folks were, the better they did in the election, which is stunning. And no matter how unimpressive the candidates, they seem to do very well. The high-profile candidates who were trying to capture that protest vote for the centre-right, who were opposing globalisation, who were opposing the green madness, the climate change insanity. They did very bad, unusually, incredibly badly. I mean, some of them got. I mean, one of them was a very high-profile, well-known candidate that got, in terms of relative to voter turnout, got the lowest vote that they had ever got across four federal elections. The lowest vote they ever got, even at a time when there was, there were some of these protests, the anti-COVID protests, had over 1 million people. Not one of these people, not one, decided to lodge a protest vote. I mean, that's insane. I just don't believe it. So it can be, the globalists obviously didn't want to lose this one, and the outcome was almost exactly. I mean, if the globalists had written it up as a script, it ended up exactly as the globalists would have wanted it. And I just don't buy that for a minute. So don't think the globalists are going to give up without a fight. And if that means arbitrarily putting people in prison, and even worse, then I think they'll do it, and they'll do it without a moment's hesitation, and believe that it's the right thing to do in order to continue with the globalist project, which has now become some sort of, I don't know, you can almost call it they're approaching it with twisted, macabre missionary zeal. Being a Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for listening.